Hello and welcome to this very special video where we are going to be diving into a rare Australian essential oil. Recently, I've gained a bit of an interest in Anise Myrtle, and you may be wondering what on earth this oil is, where it comes from, how you use it, and who better to actually ask about it than one of Australia's top aromatherapists who specializes in oils gifted from the Australian homeland. Deby, Atterby, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Adam. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, I've got Anise Myrtle going in the diffuser behind me at the moment, but I wanted to find out a little bit more because when you jump on the internet, people just say, oh, it smells like licorice and it's nice to pop in a diffuser. And I'm sure there are more gifts than that. And I know you're the person to ask about that. But first of
Thank you.
all, people maybe that don't necessarily live in Australia, they may have heard just general myrtle essential oil. And sometimes we hear about lemon myrtle essential oil, but this is another Australian myrtle, isn't it?
Yeah, and this Anise Myrtle has been around for a very long time. You know, they've been harvesting this type of oil, this particular plant since, World War Two, and they were using it way back then for things such as food, to actually use the plant itself, and they would work with that to actually give flavour to the food. Especially at one stage, there wasn't the herbs around like there were in the World War Two, so they actually did work with the leaves of the myrtle tree itself, of that Anise myrtle.
Now, do we find it all across Australia or is it located in certain spots?
No, no, no. Look, like every plant in Australia, you know, there are certain areas where things grow better, and the Anise myrtle is in quite a good abundance. Not great, but there is quite a fair bit of it growing down on what we call the northern rivers of New South Wales. This is just before the borderline of Queensland, so it's a very it's a much more humid type of weather. We've got a lot of rainfall and things like that, so that just suits the myrtles perfectly.
Hmm. And you mentioned before that it is, it's used since World War Two, but obviously Australia has been a land inhabited for many, many, many years. Any
Indeed.
First Nations uses that were using this
Yeah,
plant with the
yeah.
Indigenous people?
Absolutely. So this was a prime plant for them, and one of them, what they would call it was warraganya. That's what they would call Anise Myrtle. That was its name, and this particular myrtle would be used. So they would get like heavy rocks, and through that they would actually, like a mortar and pestle kind of, and they would break the leaves, and they would use those leaves, and they would put them on coals and, hot water, and do inhalation. So actually they were still using the essential oil, but they didn't actually understand that, so they would do this for reasons of sore throats. They also used it as a tea. So they infused it and they drank that, which was actually quite interesting because that was like a revitalizer. So it sort of gave them the vitality that they needed. So, and I think when the actual white settlers came to Australia, they could actually see this. And so in some way they copycatted it. And they actually did use a lot of that anise myrtle in things like billy teas.
Yeah, and it does have this really nice kind of, to describe the aroma that's steam distilled from the leaves, it would very much be, like a licorice scent. Yeah, but there are other oils out there like fennel and star anise and so on. But this one has a bit of a softer, more gentle aroma, doesn't it?
Do you know, that's really interesting. It does have a softer aroma, Adam, but it actually has more power than most of those other oils that have got that aniseed smell behind it. And it's been proven that it's much stronger in its particular oil itself, than maybe if you used fennel oil or something like that, or even if you used star anise, you will get a lot more from this particular anise myrtle. Yeah, the aroma is more subtle, but it actually is much more powerful.
Wow, really interesting. And I know that, people have been looking at this, as you said, it's not a brand new oil to come to the world, and people have been working with it. It's even been reclassified with its Latin name, I believe.
Yeah, it did. So there for a long time, we would have called it the Backhousey Anastasium but it's not now. They've got Zygium anastatum. That's what it's called now. So it has changed its botanical. But if you have a look at a lot of Australian plants, like here along the way, you know, we've got our spotted gum, like our lemon spotted gum. That used to be the backhousey lemon spotted gum, but now it's gone to another Caribbean name, and that's changed. And so along the way, we have had some changes with our botanicals. Yeah, definitely.
So let me know, as I said before, it smells nice. You said it's more powerful. How should we be using anise myrtle, or what are some of the benefits of this amazing essential oil?
You know, it has some fabulous, they actually have done quite a lot of research. So people can really go out and have a little look at that if they really needed to sort of go back more involved in this. But yeah, it has been researched for its antiseptic properties as well as its antioxidant properties, so which is really, really important. It also has a calming effect. So it also works quite well on the digestive system. So it's one of those, you know, often people who have problems, you know, with a little bit of reflux, just even if you were to rub that down through that esophagus area and into the abdomen, it actually does help with that type of problem. If you have something like reflux, it's not something that you would ever put in your mouth because you would completely burn your esophagus with that. So there are some things we have to think about, and maybe a little bit later here we could talk about that safety factor, because great oil, calm, it's got all these wonderful actions, but we also need to be aware of a few of the certain things on safety precautions with that as well.
Got you. So, you know, topically, and obviously, whenever we're applying oils topically to the body, we want to make sure we're diluting them at a good level with a carrier oil. We never put direct essential oils on. So, for the digestive issues, it would be really helpful. You know, is there anything else that you found with your clients, or that people at home could use it for as well?
Yeah, sure. So when we're going to talk about topical, if you're going to actually use this oil, and I think this is really good for anyone who's listening to me, if you're using a base, so you use either a base cream or a base oil, or you want to add it to something prior to using, only come in at around about 2.4%. That don't go any higher, because then we could have problems because of the trans anthanol that's in this particular essential oil. Is very, very high. It's around about 87 to 88%. So that's a very, very high thing. We need to talk a little bit more about that. But you know, and if it's ever oxidized, so you know, there's a shelf life on there. You must abide by that shelf life, because if you don't, there could be problems with irritation, a lot of dermal problems. So yeah, there's lots of things.
Now, go on.
Sorry. There's lots of things that we can work with it, like, you know, especially through the olfactory system. That's if you like the smell, of course. That's got to be also part and parcel of that. I don't know about, do you like the smell of aniseed? Are you into that? I don't know. I don't
You know,
like
it was interesting because it's kind of, and we'll talk a little bit more about the chemistry in a couple of moments, but it's a calming oil, and some have even suggested it might be a nice bedtime oil. I don't know if I want my bedroom to smell like a licorice all sort. I do enjoy it for, like, maybe, I think it's a really good maybe diffusing around the evening, where you're kind of winding down, but you're not trying to go to sleep yet, but you just want something a little bit kind of relaxing. But I kind of think of other oils, you know, things like the effect that spearmint might have, or, you know, that kind of, it's revitalizing, and it puts you back at ease. It's like walking out of a yoga class.
Balance. Yeah, you got that sort of, well,
Exactly.
you know, it's fresh, but I can calm down with it. I think you're right with that. I think that's what you can look at with that particular essential oil. To me, it's like, if I was going to use it, I would find that if there was, like at the moment, we're experiencing a lot of bushfires around here. So this is sort of an oil that I actually use, because it really counteracts a lot of odor. So it actually makes things smell more pleasant. So that's something that I would look at. Cleaning, I love using it in cleaning products as well. I mean, it's something that really works beautifully. Like if you're doing your bathrooms and stuff like that, adding some essential oil to your cleaning products. This is one, and Anise Myrtle's beautiful to do that with as well.
For some reason, dinner party seems like a good idea for diffusing it at. It's just a kind of a unique aroma, you know.
and it gets that
in your
digestive
house. I don't know
system.
why.
And it helps with the
True,
digestive
true.
system. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
very true
so.
indeed.
Yeah, I think also though, Adam, in the sense of it all, I I would have to be totally honest with you, and I'd have to say, like, not everybody, and I will have to say it with all truth, not everybody will want to say they like that oil, and because sometimes
Yeah.
people just hate that actual smell. Now, obviously, ouzo, they love drinking that; they're going to love it at your dinner party.
Very true. Yeah. So it's definitely, if you haven't experienced Anise Myrtle yet, you're going to expect a licorice all sort kind of aroma. It's
Yeah.
definitely that.
And,
But
and
yeah,
keep that
a little bit
dosage
softer and
down.
nicer.
Yeah, and keep that
Yeah.
dosage low because it is such a powerful oil. In retrospect, with its aroma, even with its dynamics of healing and things like that, but keeping it low. I'll tell you what I use it really much for. This is really true. I love this for a particular reason. I work with a particular cold, I suppose you can call it a cold balm that I make. And I work really a lot with it on the feet. So it really makes for wonderful things for reflexology, or people who have got really rough and ready tight feet, that type of stuff. A good balm with the anise in it, oh my gosh, it's dynamite. It really is fantastic, and it is
Yeah.
really good for the actual feet as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, I
I'm
love
not
it.
expecting you to give away any trade secrets here, but when you make that balm, do you mix it with any other essential oils? Is that a blend or just the anise myrtle?
You can just use anise myrtle. You don't really have to put anything else. Obviously, I would be working with other things. Probably in this situation, I would definitely go to bases like your sandalwoods and things like that. So the sandalwood really gives it a lot of hold and capacity. I love that. And it's also very good for hydrations and stuff like that. So yeah, and people's feet sometimes. I mean, I'm a bit of a fussy person about having my toenails painted, and I love all that sort of girly stuff. So and I don't like cracked heels. I'm sorry. So that's why I love that balm, and it just smells so. It's really good. It's really good for your feet. Yeah. So that's what I love using it for.
Yeah, I'm intrigued, and I don't expect you to necessarily know about this, but I've found putting certain oils. So gardenia is the main one, but juniper berry, vetiver, and Buddhawood. If I put them on my soles of my feet when I go to sleep at night, I dream a lot more. And now I'm wondering, I'm gonna, people that are watching this video might want to go, oh, I might try that with Anise Myrtle. It may do the same thing. We'll have to find
And you
out.
know what? Let's see if you get some feedback on that one. And the one thing there
Yeah.
that is a beautiful spiritual part of what you just did, what a very spiritual part of that blend that you have made, is that Buddhawood. And maybe one day we can catch and talk about that Buddhawood, because it really does have that very spiritual, meditated type thing, and that really helps with dreaming. So it's a beautiful oil.
Very much is. No, I think we'll label that for another day, definitely. Now, one thing before I spoke to you, I was like, okay, the best way to understand an essential oil, if it's a bit new or a bit fresh, is look at its chemistry. And when I looked at its chemistry, it had a couple of key constituents, which are not commonplace ones that I'm like, oh, it's not a linalool or an alpha pinene or a 1,8 cineol or anything. Can you tell me a little bit about the chemistry and then what that tells us about the oil?
Yeah, well, this particular oil, the two main ones that we would look at is the estrol there, which is like the methyl chavacol, and that's something that sits in around about 5 to 6%. Now, this particular chavacol is it's quite a powerful part of that oil, and so it's something that we have to look at very carefully. So if I was to bring this part of the chemistry into you, I'd also like to add a little bit of the safeties. So these two particular chemicals that we'll talk about are the two things that will relay back into that safety thing. And the other one that we use is the transanthol, and that's the one that's brings in that really aniseedy smell as well. So that's coming in around about 87 to 88% within that oil. So that's very high. That is extremely high, and that particular chemistry. Yeah.
Is it? Do you know if it's the transanthol that gives it the licorice aroma, or is that something else that does that?
That is what
Yeah.
gives it
So
its
is that
aroma.
something that we'd also find? Sorry, go on.
No, you tell me. I missed what you said. Sorry.
Oh, good. I was gonna say, do we find that is that constituent in like star anise oil or in fennel as
Yes,
well, or is that a
yes,
different thing that gives
yes,
that aroma?
yes,
Yeah,
we do. Yep, we do find that
yeah.
in those particular things. So aniseed, you can find that in there. You can find it in your star anise. You can find it in your phenols and things like that. That transenthal that's in there. But at this case with the myrtle or this Anise Myrtle, it is very high. You know, bringing it up to 88% in there. That's a pretty high content.
That's really interesting, and I want to kind of do a bit of a broader sweep and come just away from Anise Myrtle for just a moment, if I may. Um,
Mm.
what I'm finding, we have our lemon myrtle, and lemon myrtle is quite high in a few constituents that you'd find in something like lemongrass or other lemon scented things. But again, from my understanding, lemon myrtle has a higher dosage. Is this a trend that you've noticed in Australia, or just something that's kind of popped into my mind right now?
Okay. So you're saying to me, if I can get this correct, you find it's
Yeah.
interesting that a lot of myrtles hold very high constituents within the oil itself. Is that what you're saying? So where you're getting something that may be an aldehyde in one of them, it seems to be much higher because it's a myrtle. Is that what you're kind of trying to ask?
Yeah, am I right in saying that, or
Well, do you know, I think it is a lot to do with, where these oils are coming from. I mean, obviously they they are produced and they're organically grown in those areas, and obviously that's where it does. I really couldn't come out and give you a direct answer and say, yes, because of Australia's grounds and things like that, we get higher. I don't know. I would not necessarily like to say that in particular, but you know, if it's grown in the right place, then that's what we get out of it, then that's what we've been given. So I suppose it's nature's way of saying, well, here, this is what's used for you and this is what you can. It's like things like tea tree and things like that. They're growing in the right conditions then to gather this type of outcome with the constituents themselves. But I don't know if I could answer that any other way, to be honest, Adam. That's a bit of an
no?
interesting.
That's okay. It's I think placing Australian oils on the world stage, it's interesting. Yeah, what the landscape gifts the world type of thing was just kind of
It
my
does.
reflection on that. Yeah.
Do you know,
Now I
as a
wanted
herbalist,
to. Sorry, go on. Yeah.
as a herbalist, I always remember the one big thing, well, part of also sustainability of how we harvest or forage for things. But the one thing I always remember is that the way or where the plant is grown is what we really need to look at. So particularly at the moment, I'm doing a profile on a specific essential oil called emu bush. Now, the one that is developed here close in Queensland, the constituents are so different to the one that grows in WA. So, it is really a thing
Mm.
about Australia. Australia really does develop a lot of different plants or similar species or part of their genesis, but they actually do come in with quite a different um, part of their chemistry that they do change, and it is to do exactly with where they are growing.
And I think some people forget that Australia, although only one country, is a very, very large country landscape wise. And I've explained to other foreigners that, some I can take you, on a 2 hour plane ride, probably from snow to a tropical environment very, very quickly. So we have a whole diversity. And yeah, as you said, where a plant grows makes a big difference. And we've had discussions previously about Tasmanian lavender, grown in the very small island off the bottom of Australia. Very, very different to Bulgarian and French lavender, even if it is the same species.
That's it, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is the thing about us. I mean, Australia really is a wonderful place, and I think learning about those Australian native oils is just, fascinating because we actually, if you were to stop and think about it, we could be very independent in Australia, and we could probably look at growing nearly every type of plant to extract in Australia because we have just about every climate, and we have everything. We have from the desert, as you said, to the rain, to the snow, to the we've got it all. We've got the right environment to do many different types of farming because of that.
Very, very true. So we can obviously bring all the plants in, but like Anise Myrtle, we have so many native plants that emu bush is a brand new one that I haven't had any experience with yet. But there are so many
Until
things
you
that
read
we are
my
yet
journal,
to
you're not going to
uncover in
know about
Australia.
it. And you're not going to know
Ah,
unless you read the journal.
we better all get hold of that for sure, definitely. Now, I think it is important to talk about that safety issue. So, talk to me
Yeah.
a little bit about the safety issue of Anise Myrtle, please.
Okay, now because of those two constituents that we were talking about with the estrol as well as that one with the trans anthol, the big thing is that we have to look at is these oils really are not best to use whilst a mum is pregnant. It is because it is so strong, and anyone who actually has problems with like endometriosis and things that maybe estrogenic type dependent cancers can be very, very because it's so strong in its estrogen development with what it does to you. It's like fennel shouldn't be used with that either, or either star anise. These things shouldn't be used due to this chemical structure with this type of thing. So if people just understood that a little bit, it would be such a safe oil to use if you just took
Mm,
that on. There is also that little bit about a thing, the methyl chavicol, or what we call this actual estrol in it, even though it's only coming in at a low percentage at that sort of 5 to 6%, it also is something we need to think about if somebody is on blood thinning medicine. So something
got you.
like that it is truly very important that we do that. And whilst we're at that, I would like to mention a little bit about how, as a herbalist, I would actually use this particular essential oil. So a lot of the time I would take the Anise Myrtle and take the actual plant itself, and I would break that up and I would do some decoctions with other types of things like cinnamon sticks or whatever it is to make like a cough mixture. And it works really beautiful. And remembering that when I work with those leaves, that it actually is powerful enough that that heat breaks down and those chemical constituents, including the essential oil, is left behind in the decoction. But if you're going to think
Mm,
about just using it internally, you need to be very aware, because taking something like that internally, because it is so strong, it has a tendency to really burn and ulcerate the esophagus. So it's probably more advisable to use something like that in the actual plant form. Does that make sense to you?
got you. Yes, it does, definitely. Yeah. And I wanted to, we're talking about that topical use, and digestive seems to be a really great one for it. Fennel, some people have used that to increase milk supply in lactating mothers. Anything that
Okay.
you've heard of with the Anise Myrtle in that way? Would that be
Well,
something possible?
the warnings that come through many different research things that I have seen have said, don't use it with mums that are feeding and things like that. But then in other
Mm,
sites, I've seen that it works really well. Now, they're not talking about taking this to help with lactation. What they're saying to do is, if they have it in their diffusers while they're breastfeeding, then the chances of letdown on that oxytocin will start working, and that's where the mums relax. So there's where your relaxation comes into that type of thing. When you're talking about fennel, it sort of puts them back down, and they often put them into that type of stuff into things like breast I know it's crazy, but breastfeeding cookies. So that helps the mum lactate as well. So yeah, that's how it would be. So I'd
oh,
say
interesting.
couple of drops while they're maybe with the bubby or something like that. Just keep a low dose. They do recommend, though, also not to be using on a child under 5. So under that age, and that means like you're not going to get that oil and rub it all over the baby on a little massage or something. That's not what you would be doing with that particular oil. But obviously it is very calming if you do use it for a massage on an adult. It's an extremely
Yeah.
calming oil at a low dose. Put it into it. Good for back, necks, great on that vagus nerve. that's where it works really good. Excellent for that, because people whose vagus nerves out of whack a little bit, nice cold compress behind here with maybe a drop or so, and just rub it in with a little bit of oil, and then place that over for that vagus nerve to sort of kick back in.
Thank you. That's golden. I get a lot of questions about vagus nerves and which oils have an impact on that. So that's going to be very valuable, I know, for some people tuning in at the moment as well. I just wanted just to clarify one thing as well. When, avoiding Anise Myrtle during pregnancy, would that be just topical, or would you not even be whacking it in a diffuser during pregnancy?
Because it affects that estrogen, I would be sort of more inclined to say maybe if you wanted to put it into a burner, but don't be in an enclosed room. And that's the same with people who suffer with things like epilepsy. Don't close the room in and suffocate them with that smell. Sure, if they've got a lovely clean home and they want to make it nice and fresh, and she's pregnant, and they pop a couple of drops into a diffuser, and the windows are open and everything's flowing beautiful, I really personally do not see that would be an issue. Yes, I wouldn't be rubbing her, giving her a massage with Anise Myrtle, definitely not during her pregnancy. There are many other beautiful oils that they could use for that. But Anise Myrtle does have its place. And I mean, I would never not go with having that in my essential oils. And I do work with it a lot. So as I say, it's got so many wonderful characters that it can work with, and for the right reasons.
Awesome. Deb, thank you so much for today. You've really kind of given us a bit more of a perspective of, apart from it smelling like licorice, what it can be used for. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you think needs to be mentioned about this amazing essential oil?
Yeah, I think just to remember that, if you're going to put something on topically, make sure that you've got a good carrier, because it can be quite it can be quite an irritation to the actual dermal areas itself. But look, really keep a small dose. It's very powerful. It's very strong. Check if the person loves it, because most people do love it. Once they get it, and it's a lovely oil to blend. But if you were going to put a couple of drops somewhere, make it one drop. Don't go into it too heavily, because if you go into it, it will then become an irritant to you, and you probably won't like it. It is also one of those oils that, as I said, they do use in a lot of cooking. They actually use it in cooking. So I know that there's lots of Australian type restaurants being opened up, and there was one particular one up on the Gold Coast, and they were using the anise in some of their icing sugars and things like that, but only one drop. They only needed that one drop. So it's not something that you would be loading up anything with it. Just a drop here or a drop there is fabulous. And of course, remember, cooking and using it as you would with making a cough mixture is different to just putting it in your mouth.
Very differently, yeah. And I'll echo what you said about the aroma. I popped some in the diffuser behind me because we're talking about it. And whereas normally you'd smell an essential oil and then you kind of start, it'd fade into the background. I put my normal amount in here, and I've been smelling it the whole time we've been talking. So it definitely is a lot stronger than your average essential oil. Yeah.
Yeah, it does take a little
now
longer.
This video is, oh, go on.
Yeah, no, it just does take a little bit longer with your olfactory system with that type of essential oil, because it is quite powerful. It's a little bit like basil. Basil takes a fair while too for that fading effect. And when the fading effect comes through the olfactory system, okay, then you might not smell it, but somebody will. And often you can smell it the next day as well. And the one thing I do know about Anise Myrtle, because, I can say this, that when I have my oils and I have that anise with me, it really does impermeate things. So if you've got things, problems in your wardrobes and things like insects and stuff like that, how you have those little moths sometimes, and this is something you can buy the little balls, the little wooden balls, and you can put that on top of it, and put a couple of good drops on there and put it into the closets and things like that. Great if you've got shoes and you want to keep them fresh, really all that sort of stuff. Anise, you can't go without. That's one of those things that I would use a lot of for those reasons.
Yeah, amazing. Do you talked about cleaning products before? Does it have any antimicrobial, bacterial, fungal?
Yes,
traits
because it's
in it?
antiseptic. Yep, it has. It's antioxidant. It's got the antiseptics, antimicrobial. It's got all of that in the above. So that's why I really love it. And of course, it's got that deodorizing scent behind it. So it makes everything fresh, smell clean, smell alive. So it's kind of that kind of oil as well, you know. So yeah, I love it. Put it in your cleaning products. You know, I really do that. Put it in those little mothball things and throw it around and let it go into your closets, and, you know, work with it like that. And it does keep, you know, it's like a really good odorant. So I really do like to use that for those reasons.
Wow. Deby, thank you so much for sharing so much on Anise Myrtle. Now, when this video comes out, you have an exciting online event that anyone anywhere in the world can get some cutting edge information about essential oils. Can you give us a bit of shameless self promotion about what you've got coming up?
Oh, thank you, Adam. Yes, on the 10th, the 11th, and the 12th of November, I have Aromatica Australia conference coming up. Now, we have some fabulous speakers throughout the whole world coming in, professional people who are at the top of their game. This is a virtual event, and they can go to our site, which is aromatherapy today shop, and they can open up and they can click in and they can find out where they can register there. It's a 3-day event. Our first one is we're giving a free Friday evening, and it's only just for an hour and a half. We've got a little bit going there. I was showing them how to use Australian essential oils to work on burns. I've also got another gentleman, some people may know him, he's Greg Trevina, and he's going to be talking about his mango myrtle on there. We have the lavender farm where people have never seen. We're going up into the Northern Territory. We have a wonderful man by the name of Vince, and he's talking about the blue cypress. Oh gosh, and the history of it. We've got people from all over the world talking about cancer care, helping in palliative areas, talking about everything. We've got workshops running. I could go on, but it's absolutely really, really worth it. And you can do it whenever. If you sign up for it, you don't have to watch it immediately. You've got it there for 6 months. And, you know, I think that everybody will benefit from that. They really would benefit.
You've just given us a taste test there, and, you know, hearing about mango myrtle, which is another, you know, rare Australian essential oil, is fascinating. And blue cypress. People have heard of cypress essential oil, but this one is so different that the oil is gifted from the wood, and it's friggin' blue, and it smells amazing, isn't it?
Well, maybe one day we should talk about that one as well. And I'll tell you, I have had some amazing clinical things happening with that, with what products and things that I've formulated for certain ailments, and it has been absolutely brilliant. Really, really. I mean, we have a lot of blue things out there, like you got your Yarra, you got your German blues, but this particular one is just fabulous oil. So yeah, so many things to join, and I hope people come along. I mean, we got prizes, we've got all sorts of things happening. So yeah, and it is virtual, so it's not a bad thing at all.
So to find out about that, check out the links below this video. We've got all the details there. Deby, thank you so much for your generosity of time today. We've talked about Anise Myrtle. We've now got to start talking about Buddhawood at some time, and now we've got blue cypress. We're going to be busy in the coming months and years, but, you know, there's so much that we could learn for you. I'll also put Deby's links if you want to find out more about the other work that she does as well, and how you can reach out to her. So Deby, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, Adam, thank you so much. And anytime, please, I'm here for you any day. Fabulous. Thank you.
So
and I
much.
hope everybody enjoys. Okay, take care. Thank you.